They told you discipline is everything, waking up at dawn, pushing through pain, following routines no matter how you feel, believing that relentless effort is the gateway to greatness. They said if you stay focused long enough, your time will come, and you believed it. You forced yourself to stay consistent, to obey the system, to silence the part of your mind that wanted rest. You called it strength, you called it discipline, but Machiavelli would call it something else. He would call it obedience to a system that was never built for your dominance. Here's the harsh truth. Discipline makes you predictable. And in a world where power belongs to the unpredictable, the adaptive, the strategically ruthless, discipline is not power, it's a leash. If you want to be dangerous, unstoppable, untouchable, Machiavelli would say one thing: stop worshipping discipline and start mastering strategy. Discipline is only valuable when you're the one setting the rules. Most people aren't. Most people are disciplined inside a system someone else created. They wake up early, not because it makes them stronger, but because a book said successful people do. They grind on projects they despise, not because it leads to power, but because discipline told them to finish what they started. They follow routines like sacred rituals, never questioning if the routine still serves the outcome. Machiavelli would laugh at this because to him, consistency for the sake of consistency is weakness. Persisting in a plan that no longer works isn't noble. Sticking to a code that earns no power isn't virtuous. That's not discipline. It's mental slavery dressed as self-improvement. Now imagine a different mind, a dangerous mind, that sees discipline not as a goal, but as a tool to be used and discarded as needed. This mind doesn't wake up at 5 a.m. because the guru said so. It wakes when the hour serves the next strike. It rests when recovery fuels its next move. It moves fast when speed provides advantage, and it slows down when silence brings power. This mind doesn't force consistency. It adapts, it recalibrates. It abandons the routine the moment predictability becomes a liability. Predictability is how enemies find you, and discipline, when worn like a badge, becomes your greatest weakness. The dangerous man doesn't pride himself on rigidity. He prides himself on mastery over time, emotion, and action. He isn't bound by the chains of discipline. He can shift strategy mid-battle without guilt. That's why Machiavelli would say, discipline is for soldiers. Strategy is for rulers. One follows orders, the other rewrites the map. Here's how discipline quietly kills power. First, discipline trains you to obey, not to question. When you become addicted to routines, you stop asking if the outcome still matters. You keep going simply because that's what I do. You don't notice the landscape has changed. You don't adapt. You persist, and persistence in the wrong direction is just failure in slow motion. Second, discipline rewards endurance, not intelligence. Anyone can grind, but the most powerful minds know when to pivot, when to quit, and when to redesign the entire plan. Discipline keeps you moving. Strategy tells you where to move. Third, discipline dulls your instincts. You stop listening to your gut, overriding intuition because it doesn't fit the plan. You force yourself to push when a pause would have made you lethal. Machiavelli's most dangerous followers don't follow blueprints. They follow results. They ask one question relentlessly: does this serve the outcome? Not, is this the right habit? Not, did I stick to the plan? But, does this move bring me closer to control, power, leverage, or victory? If the answer is no, the move is discarded, no matter how noble it seemed, no matter how many days it had been repeated, no matter how disciplined it made them appear. For Machiavelli, the illusion of virtue is the deadliest trap, and discipline is one of its sharpest snares, because it feels like growth even when it keeps you small. Look around. The world is full of hard-working, consistent, disciplined men, waking at 5 a.m., journaling, reading, eating the same clean meals. They follow the system perfectly, and yet they remain invisible, replaceable, obedient to a structure that rewards loyal workers, not powerful thinkers. That's not weakness by accident. It's weakness by design. The disciplined man is perfect for systems of control, dependable, unquestioning, pushing through discomfort without revolt, predictable, measurable, forecastable. Machiavelli would call him the ideal servant. Now contrast that with the one they never see coming. He doesn't follow the same routine every day. He follows momentum. He avoids rigid habits. He watches for windows of opportunity. He doesn't feel guilt for abandoning a plan that no longer serves him. He pivots instantly. Because he is unpredictable, they cannot control him. Unchained from discipline, he is always positioned for power. This is the Machiavelli reversal. Discipline earns respect, but only strategy earns fear. And in the pursuit of power, respect without fear is meaningless. So, if you're waking up every day, forcing yourself through motions just to feel good about consistency, if you're sticking to a path that no longer produces leverage, if you're addicted to discipline because it shields you from the discomfort of adapting, then you've already lost. The game isn't won by the one who works the hardest. It's won by the one who reads the game, bends the rules and adjusts the fastest. Discipline doesn't make you dangerous, only control does. And control doesn't come from force. It comes from flexibility, weaponized through strategy. The world respects the disciplined man, but it fears the strategic one. While the disciplined man is busy perfecting his routine, the strategic man is perfecting leverage. He isn't trying to become efficient at life. He's trying to bend life toward his will. This is where Machiavelli draws the line. He doesn't reject effort, nor does he despise structure, but he knows that once structure becomes a religion, it becomes your prison. He operates in a different realm. He understands that every disciplined man eventually becomes a slave to his own system, and that slavery, no matter how productive, is still slavery. Here's how it happens. First, you build a habit. Then the habit becomes your identity. And then your identity becomes your cage. I'm the guy who never skips a day. I'm the one who always finishes what he starts. I'm the man who pushes through no matter what. It sounds noble, but Machiavelli would look you in the eyes and say, that makes you predictable. That makes you vulnerable. That makes you mine. Because the moment someone can guess your next move, you've already lost the advantage. And when discipline becomes who you are, your enemies don't need to fight you. They just need to watch you follow your own script. The Machiavelli mind isn't afraid to break its own rules. In fact, it sees rules as tools, temporary, situational, and expendable. Here's what that looks like in practice. If the plan stops working, he doesn't hesitate to burn it. If the routine loses leverage, he abandons it mid-stride. If a better opportunity appears, he pivots instantly, without guilt. Because he knows this. Power is not given to the consistent. Power is given to the adaptive. Let's get tactical. Here are the 3 most common ways discipline traps men into weakness, and what Machiavelli would do instead. First, the morning routine trap. Wake up early. Cold shower, read, journal, meditate, gym, green smoothie. You feel like a machine, like a winner. But here's the catch. You didn't think, you followed. Your entire morning was an act of obedience, not an act of opportunity. Machiavelli would ask, did this routine move you closer to real-world power? Did it position you to outthink, outmaneuver, or outleverage your competitors today, or did it just make you feel like you were making progress? He doesn't wake up to feel productive. He wakes up with one goal: control the next decisive moment. If that means skipping the gym to make a call that changes your income, do it. If it means ignoring the journal to rehearse psychological strategy before a negotiation, do it. If it means sleeping in because your clarity at pilem matters more than your pride at xyam, do it. You are not here to impress your calendar. You are here to win. Second, the streak addiction. I haven't missed a day in 100 days. I've been doing this every day for a year. That's not power, that's pride in disguise. Machiavelli would call it emotional leverage against yourself. You've built a prison where breaking the streak feels like death. Even if the streak no longer produces value, the disciplined man says, I can't stop now. I've come too far. The strategic man says, if stopping now gives me an advantage, I will stop instantly. Consistency is only power when it serves your goals, not your ego. The moment the system stops giving real returns, you abandon it without apology. Every day spent in a useless routine is a day. Your enemies are catching up or pulling ahead. Third, the finish what you started lie. They taught you to never quit, to always finish, to see it through. But Machiavelli didn't finish bad plans, he replaced them. He didn't honor every commitment, he adapted. The moment a better opportunity appeared, he pivoted. He didn't persist for the sake of integrity, he moved for the sake of victory. This doesn't make you flaky. It makes you dangerous. While the disciplined man keeps pushing a broken cart uphill, you quietly change carts and pass him without effort. The world rewards those who complete the right things, not those who complete everything. And this is where the Machiavellian mind separates completely from the obedient one. He doesn't follow structure, he weaponizes it. He builds routines that produce measurable leverage, not emotional comfort. He trains himself to walk away from systems the moment they lose power. He practices breaking his own rhythm, so no one can ever track his pattern. Discipline is not evil, but unquestioned discipline is mind control, especially when you're the one hypnotizing yourself. The man who trains himself to break his rhythm at will is the man no one can trap, because no one knows when he'll strike, where he'll move, or how far he's willing to go to win. So ask yourself, are you being consistent because it's working, or because it's what you're used to? Are you following discipline to move forward, or to feel safe in the illusion of control? Are you proud of how long you've stuck to your system, even if that system no longer builds anything real? Because discipline is only power when it's tied to results. Otherwise, it's just a cage you built with your own hands. This is why Machiavelli didn't write books about motivation. He didn't glorify consistency. He didn't praise obedience. He praised flexibility, foresight, timing, psychological agility, and above all, control. In the real game of power, the man who can follow a plan is valuable, but the man who can abandon it at the exact right moment is untouchable. By now you understand what most never will. Discipline, when used blindly, is not a superpower, it's a performance. A socially accepted form of self-oppression. But what makes this performance so seductive is that it earns applause. People see your grind and say, you're focused. They see your habits and say, you're reliable. They see your routine and say, you're admirable. But they don't see what you've lost in the process. They don't see the opportunities you missed by refusing to pivot. They don't see the power you surrendered just to keep your streak alive. They don't see the creativity, the sharpness, the cold instinct you buried beneath discipline's comforting structure. Machiavelli's genius was this. He saw that virtue is often used as a leash, and discipline, it's the leash you proudly tighten around your own throat. You think it makes you strong to say, I always push through, but the strategic mind asks, push through what? And why? You say, I never quit, but the Machiavellian asks, is what you're doing still worth finishing? Or are you afraid to appear inconsistent? You say, I'm locked in, but he says, good. Now your enemies know exactly where to find you. And that's the most dangerous thing about discipline. It makes you visible, trackable, predictable. In war, the predictable man is the first to be ambushed. In politics, the predictable man is the easiest to manipulate. In life, the predictable man never gets power because everyone already knows his next move. So what does the dangerous man do instead? He learns to weaponize inconsistency. Not laziness, not chaos. Strategic inconsistency. It looks like this. One week he's social, the next he vanishes. One day he's agreeable, the next he's ice cold. One season he pushes relentlessly, the next he pulls back and repositions. Why? Because confusion breeds control. When people can't track your rhythm, they can't map your next move. And when they can't map you, they respect you differently. Discipline earns admiration, but unpredictability breeds fear. And in the game of dominance, fear will take you farther than admiration ever could. Machiavelli believed a man should never show his entire pattern. He must learn to break his own habits intentionally, so no one can study him for too long. He must remain just outside the lines of expectation. If they think you always reply immediately, delay. If they think you'll stay calm, erupt. If they think you'll show up, disappear. This isn't about being erratic. It's about controlling your image, even when that image is unclear. Because once you create confusion, people lean in. They watch you closer. They overthink around you. And that alone gives you power. Here's the deeper truth. Discipline is control over yourself. But strategy is control over the game. Discipline says, I'll keep going no matter what. Strategy says, I'll stop when it's no longer useful, and strike again when the outcome favors me. Discipline builds willpower. Strategy builds leverage. And in the world of Machiavelli, leverage always beats effort. Most advice in the world is designed to make obedient machines, not rulers. Wake up early. Do your routine. Stay consistent. Repeat, repeat, repeat. That advice wasn't meant to create power. It was meant to create workers. Reliable followers who execute, not think. But you weren't born to be a machine. You were born to be a weapon, a strategist, a force. You must unlearn the systems installed to tame you. This doesn't mean living in chaos. Machiavelli didn't preach randomness. He preached intelligent disruption. He didn't say don't be disciplined. He said be disciplined only until it stops serving the mission. When discipline leads to mastery, keep it. When discipline creates leverage, keep it. But the moment it becomes a pattern others can map, a cage you're proud to be inside, destroy it. No habit, no matter how healthy, is worth your dominance. No system, no matter how efficient, is worth your unpredictability. If you want to live like a Machiavellian, you must learn to abandon what made you respectable in order to become someone they cannot ignore. Let go of routines when they start to rot. Walk away from discipline when it stops producing momentum. Break your pattern before someone else breaks you with it. Discipline might help you build the castle, but strategy is what keeps you on the throne. When the enemy surrounds your gates, when plans fall apart, when pressure mounts, when the routine crumbles, the disciplined man says, "This isn't how I planned it." The Machiavellian says, "Good, now we play my game." But now, everything you once believed about discipline has been cracked open. You were told discipline was freedom, that it gave you strength, that it built your future. But Machiavelli would say that only applies when you control the direction. When you don't, discipline just makes you walk faster toward someone else's goal. And that's the final trap. The world praises the man who is reliable, who sticks to his process, who never wavers. But the world does not give power to that man. It gives him a certificate, a title, a gold star, and then moves him out of the way for someone more dangerous, someone who breaks the rules with precision, someone who moves in silence, adapts without guilt, and shifts shape when the game changes. That man is not disciplined. That man is Machiavellian. He doesn't live in a routine, he lives in response. He wakes up not to fulfill a plan, but to survey the battlefield. Feel the tension in the air. Calculate and strike where it hurts. If the plan from yesterday no longer applies today, he erases it without hesitation. He understands one thing: power is not a reward for effort. It's a result of clarity, timing, and adaptability. Discipline, when it becomes doctrine, destroys all three. The truly dangerous man isn't defined by his habits. He's defined by his ability to burn them down. He's disciplined only when the moment demands control. He's chaotic when chaos gives him the upper hand. He's unreadable because he has trained himself to disobey his own rhythms. He doesn't fear breaking consistency. He fears being decoded. Once your pattern is known, so is your weakness. Machiavelli didn't build kingdoms by being easy to read. Look at history. Those who dominated didn't grind in silence. They moved in silence. They didn't repeat rituals, they disrupted cycles. They didn't pride themselves on routine, they prided themselves on being uncatchable. Those who stuck tightly to their ways were crushed. The moment the terrain changed, power doesn't reward the man who shows up every day. Power rewards the man who knows when to disappear, when to pivot, when to strike, and when to vanish. Here's the final test. If someone removed your routine, your schedule, your rituals, your structure, would you still move with precision or would you freeze? Would you panic? Would you become useless? Because if your power depends on routine, it isn't real, it's rented. And the moment life shakes that foundation, you collapse with it. The Machiavellian builds his strength on something else, not consistency, not repetition, but readiness. He sharpens two things above all: on awareness. He studies the room, the opponent, the rules, and knows exactly which rule to follow or break to, shift the power balance in his favor. To detachment, from plans, from pride, from the need to be seen as disciplined. He has nothing to prove, only something to control. That's why you'll never catch him stuck, never see him trying to push through something that no longer serves him. Never hear him say, "I've done this for 100 days in a row." No, if it no longer creates advantage, he stops, he pivots, he adapts. And that's why he wins. So what should you do now? You don't need to throw away your habits, but you need to cut their leash from your identity. Ask yourself every day, does this routine still bring results? Am I following it because it works, or because it's comfortable? If I had to destroy this system today, could I rebuild something stronger tomorrow? If the answer is no, you are not free. You are not in control. You are still just a disciplined servant in a world ruled by strategic masters. Machiavelli's greatest warning wasn't about discipline itself. It was about those who mistake discipline for dominance. His greatest insight, the man who rewrites the rules, not just for others, but for himself, is the only one who becomes unstoppable. Stop being proud of how consistent you've been. Start being dangerous in how fast you can shift, reset, adapt, and win. That's not discipline, that's power. And if they ask how you did it, don't explain, don't teach, don't motivate. Just smile and move before they can predict your next step. Because when they're still measuring discipline, you'll be measuring control, and you'll already be gone.